Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the home of the best chat on the internet and another episode of the film show that goes above and beyond the review. Jim and Rob overanalyze movies. Now, folks, we've got a great show for you today and a treat, including a deep dive into another indie arty flick from that plucky upstart Marvel Studios. But first, let's all welcome Winnipeg's very own St. Vital Guardian and my superhero co-host, Mr. Jim Chloboyko.
It's hot like sauna in here.
You don't say.
Hello, everyone. I'm still wearing my England shirt, stained with the ghosts of old chicken wings. So if you see spots on it, I don't want to hear it.
Okay. I like that. The ghosts of old chicken wings. Chicken wings and ranch sauce past.
Surprisingly, it's a fate many of my shirts have been led to anyway. But yeah, how are you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good. It's been a hectic week, all in a good way. How about you, man? You're going to be going on a trip soon.
I am, yeah. Going to be heading out of town for the first time in a while, and attend to some things in another city, but for a little bit. So my background may be a bit different next time you see us or tune in. But yeah, so that's coming up. Just have to do laundry still, and I should be good to go. But I don't have to be tested. Apparently, I went and they talked me out of being tested because I'm double vaxxed and traveling within Canada. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, that's got to feel good, eh? That they're actually saying, no, really, you can go home now.
Yeah. And then, the sort of the other thing about being double vaxxed is that I went to a live sporting event earlier today that I think you saw on Facebook. But yeah, that was pretty cool. A little bit of normalcy. It was a soccer game here in Winnipeg at our big stadium. There were only a few hundred in attendance, but still it was fun and a little bit of atmosphere and brutally hot, but we were in the shade, thank God. So yeah,
fantastic.
It feels a little bit like getting back to normal, still keeping an eye on variants and that kind of thing. But evidently Ontario's opening movie theaters soon. So who knows?
Perhaps
Manitoba.
we'll be, that may happen for us this summer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, Jim, I wanted to ask you, I had a couple of things that came up this week. First of all, I'm wondering if you had a chance to see the new Witcher trailer.
Yes. Yeah. I just, I took a look at it and even just today actually. And it looks, what did you think of it? You're a big
I got to admit,
fan.
I was a big fan of the series. I really got into it. And like all the way to the end, so I was an early adopter, and this looks as good. I can see where the story's going. At the same time, I'm interested in seeing where they take it. I'm very excited about it. Richard L. asks, we're referring to the season 2 trailer, although they did reveal kind of a teaser trailer for the animated movie, which I thought was neat and everything, but I'm more interested in the live action series. Here's another thing. For folks who don't know, I had the good fortune, everyone, to be on, and let me see if I can't let's bring up a reference. I'll do that first. I had the good fortune, everyone, to be on a Winnipegger's channel the other night for an interview, and it's a podcaster here, Beaver does. Right now he's on the mission to do a movie interview every day for an entire year. And he's in week 7 or moving into week 8 now, which is kind of insane. Anyway, wow. Jim, him and I, we had a really awesome conversation between us about prequels, but we're also going to talk about and I think you like to refer to them as vegetable movies, but hey, I call myself a film fan.
Mhm.
But I haven't seen X movie.
Yeah.
I am thinking of, and maybe this will be part of a different show that I hope to premiere this week, but next time in a couple of weeks. But I'm wondering if a lot of those lists, you call yourself a film fan, bud, and top 100, and this is just I'm just kind of curious your thoughts. I got to admit, part of me now is looking, it's like kind of gatekeeping in a way. How can you, if you have not seen X or Y?
Yeah.
I am not saying that you should be, well, I've only seen 5 films and I'm an expert, but what do you think about that?
So gatekeeping as sort of a negative thing, or gatekeeping as sort of in a curation kind of way?
No, a negative thing. Well, especially, how can you call yourself a film fan? How can you call yourself an expert if you haven't seen X or Y? This idea of a curated list that if you haven't read it, if you haven't seen it, although mind you, you know what? Maybe there could be a defense for it. Maybe I'm putting bounds on the conversation, but.
Well, a couple of thoughts. I was driving around today doing some chores, and
you can have one.
Yeah. Okay. So they were talking to an author of a book largely about Black cultural stuff in the States, how the woman who sings backup on Gimme Shelter is actually the lead singer because she powers the song. They named her. Her name's Mary. I just forgot her last name, but he said that the author said that I want to be in it. I don't want to be so much of an evangelist for her, but that's what I've become. And I thought that use of the word evangelist was interesting, not in the standard religion sense of the term, but I think that's what we
spreading the good news, the good word about.
The other thought is that those lists used to be books. They used to be entire books. I have a couple. Now they're YouTube channels or things on Twitter or what have you. So I think
the American Film Institute top 100 of X or Y century, decade, etc.
Yeah, exactly. The 100 films you can't, like I have some in my own library. But I think that evangelism is a lot of what we do. It's a personal evangelism. It's, why I always joke with my kids, I've got a selection of Wes Anderson movies you can watch if you're bored. It's that they're on Blu-ray. So I think it's what all these YouTube channels do a little bit of. I think it's sort of maybe a human, once you get into a stage of civilization that has some culture in it, you want to tell people about things that you've taken in and evangelize about them. So I think that's a byproduct of being a cultural being. Whether or not that's good or bad, that's probably another.
No, I think that's a great
debate.
That's a great angle, and I think I'm gonna kind of put a pin in that for a further conversation. But I like the way you're talking about it, because there is kind of two sides to this coin. And that idea of evangelizing. And I guess we do have a guest coming up.
Speaking of which.
Who is going to be evangelizing. No, and I think maybe that's the way it's framed, the way a list can be framed and everything. Yeah. Okay. I think that was about it. Before we get into the movie, why don't we bring on our guest? I think everyone should be aware. Mostly this is driven because for whatever reason, I really want to put it all on Restream, but we did have, I had a whole kind of bit of programming set up to find out what's on Dragon Movie Guy's Film Radar, and he was kind enough to meet with me fully a couple days before the show. We did an interview. I cut it to a nice tight 15 minutes, and then for the love of God, Restream would not play it. So DMG was kind enough to say, you know what, sure, I'll come back on the show. I'll do it again. And not even in a O'Brien, who was the guy? Fox, F it. I'll do it live.
Oh,
Bill O'Reilly.
Bill
Not
O'Reilly,
even in a
yeah.
Bill O'Reilly way. So without any further ado, let's bring on the man, the myth, the legend, Brian, Dragon Movie Guy. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Now I feel like I have to be doing like a version of the Colbert Report if you're bringing up Bill O'Reilly.
Uh-oh.
Like if I could do the whole thing in character and raise my eyebrow at the camera and take off some glasses.
He did that for a long time too. I have to give the guy props for his energy. Like, talk about commitment.
Yeah.
9.5 years he did the show.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It was his thing. And given that he was almost always angry, that's an impressive one. Whenever I get that upset, I'm exhausted for days.
Yeah.
And slightly ashamed because I'm a grown-ass adult. It's like, why did I lose my temper like I'm 3? Why didn't I just go to the nearest? I could just go to the nearest grocery store and start kicking and screaming in an aisle and have someone drag me.
Rob, exhausted for days and slightly ashamed, that's definitely a Vegas thing, so I can totally relate to that.
All right. Well, listen, let's get into it. Brian, you've brought a list. We're going to start from number 5 again.
Yes.
And yeah, let's do this. Let's see if we can make that 15-minute mark. What's number 1?
So, did we want to start at number 5 and count down?
Oh yes, number 5 and move our way up.
Okay, so
number 5.
Counting down from number 5. Casey Kasem here. No, starting at number 5 is actually a trilogy that was shot and made all at once, and they're releasing them 3 weeks in a row. It is the Fear Street trilogy. It's 1994, 1978, and 1666. Fear Street Part 1, 1994, came out July 2nd. Fear Street Part 2 came out 1978, came out Friday. And 1666 Part 3 came out, or is coming out on the 16th. This is basically Scream meets Stranger Things, for lack of a better term. It looks really funny in the trailers. That people live in this small little town, and people keep dying at a weird, rapid pace, and there's a big bad guy that they kind of chase after. But I'm not usually into horror films as like something that makes my top lists. But this one looks really cool. I love the idea of shooting 3 films at once. You don't really see that very often, other than maybe The Lord of the Rings. But that was obviously a huge budget film. This is a little straight to Netflix trilogy. And horror films are notoriously low budget with people you've never seen before. But this one has a lot of the same cast in all 3 films. So that is number 5 on my list. I have not seen either the first one or the second one yet. This week was very much focused on Black Widow for me, but that's number 5 on my list.
All right. Okay. Well, let's move to number 2. Or number 4. Sorry, number 4. What would that? What are we looking at here?
Number 4 on my list is Space Jam 2, Space Jam: A New Legacy. That is the sequel to the Michael Jordan Space Jam from the 90s. This one has LeBron James and Bugs Bunny and all of the other Warner Brothers cartoons that we all love and know. And basically, LeBron James's son gets kidnapped by Don Cheadle, or Don Cheadle's character, and LeBron James and all of the Warner Brothers gang have to team up and play a basketball game to save LeBron James's son from the Monstars. But this one has hand-drawn animation, and it also has extensive use of CGI, it looks like, probably for the final act of the film, I would guess. But also has some of the hand-drawn stuff as well that we all know and love from the Space Jam universe.
All right. Okay, well, let's keep going, man.
That one's coming out July 16th.
Oh, that's right. And correct me if I'm wrong, for Fear Street, okay, the first 2 episodes are out, but July 16th, the 3rd movie, shouldn't say episodes, but the 3rd movie will be out. Okay, so it'll all be, we could binge it next weekend if we wanted to.
Yes, the 2nd, the 9th, and the 16th.
You bet. All right, number 3, man. What's it gonna be?
Number 3, we were talking about being excited to go back to theaters, and I am, but this one is actually another Netflix title. This is Gunpowder Milkshake. We've got a great cast here. We've got a cast including, as I scroll down on my notes here, we got Karen Gillan from Guardians of the Galaxy. We got Carla Gugino, Lena Headey, Michelle Yeoh. It's very much a girl power team up type.
Angela Bassett.
Angela Bassett's in this. And also we have 12-year-old Chloe Coleman, who was in a movie last year with Dave Bautista, so another tie-in with Guardians of the Galaxy. This was right before everything shut down, but it's a really cool little movie called My Spy. She really steals the show in that film. So she is sort of the younger character in this film. Looks really good. This one sort of looks like John Wick meets Loki. That's sort of the aesthetic to it. Kind of fast paced, lots of guns, lots of fighting, and 3 different generations of women having to team up to take on a bunch of bad guys and Paul
Giamatti's the bad guy, correct?
And Paul Giamatti. If there's anyone that's ever been more of a lovable, snively little, bad guy, and yet somehow still likable, but that you root against, it's Paul Giamatti.
Oh, I think it was called Shoot 'Em Up with Clive Owen and Maria Bellucci, where he was the bad guy in that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good deep pull. I have that somewhere on my stacks way over there somewhere. I haven't seen it in quite a while, but yes,
I've watched a couple of movies.
His father, His father was also the commissioner of baseball for a few years when young Paul was growing up. Yeah,
there's another deep cut. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and my favorite of his, by the way, is still I'm not a huge Howard Stern fan, but Howard Stern's movie Private Parts way back in the 90s, he was Pig Vomit. He was the manager of a radio station that told him, no, Howard Stern, you can't do it. He was
the New York NBC guy.
Yes,
that was supposed to control him.
Yeah.
WNBC. Okay, moving on. Number 2, my friend.
Yes, number 2 is actually a little. It looks like an independent type film, or at least has that independent aesthetic to it. It's called 9 Days, and this is a film that looks like it's basically Soul meets Loki. That's sort of aesthetic to it, like Soul, like Disney Pixar's Soul, where potential future humans, they're the future human souls, are interviewing for the right to come down to Earth and live a life. Wow. But sort of with a very dark cinematography thing and a lot of standard definition TVs showing in the background, showing different scenes.
Defending your life in reverse. Meryl Streep and Albert Brooks.
Yes, Albert Brooks. I love Albert Brooks. Sort of like that, sort of like Soul, but with a sort of slower, darker, more thoughtful aesthetic to it, a darker cinematography style. Very similar to what we're seeing in the trailers for Loki. So that's coming in at number 2. And that also has a really good cast that has Winston Duke as the guy who's interviewing human souls. But we also
does sound exciting.
Yeah, and it's got a great cast. We've got Zazie Beetz from Deadpool 2. We've got Benedict Wong from Doctor Strange. We've got Bill Skarsgård. So we have Pennywise from the It movies also in this, and all of them are, interviewing for their lives, interviewing for their right to come down and live on Earth.
For those of you who are interested in catching this flick, it is scheduled to be released in the United States on July 30th, with wide release August 6th. So, and who knows what that means for Canada, because everything's different apparently when you cross the 49th barrel.
It's the metric system. Something about the dates and times kind of changes things.
That's what it is. Let's all blame metric.
The exchange rate of metrics, I think, is what.
It's 79 centiminutes. What is that?
Well, so we started to quote star dates. What the hell? Okay. DMG, what's the number one? Feel free to lay it on thick.
The number one movie is actually, it's a very kismet sort of thing. It is the movie you're covering tonight. It is, of course, Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson, Florence Pugh, David Harbour, a great cast, Rachel Weisz, and the four of them form a family unit. I don't want to go into too many spoilers here, but it is, and part of this too. I love this film. I gave it 4 stars out of 5 in my review. It is the first.
That's your new series of 5-minute reviews, right?
Yes, I'm starting a new series of 5-minute reviews. Just for people that, for all of us, for the 3 of us, we love talking movies. We'll go for 2, 3, 4 hours, sometimes talking about even one movie. But for anyone else that wants to just be able to get a review for a movie and be able to hit all the high points of it and find out the basics of it, I figure if I can do that in 5 minutes or less, or do it exactly in 5 minutes to the frame, exactly 5 minutes, that's my goal. I want to tell you everything, at least on a surface level, about this movie, Black Widow, in 5 minutes.
Well, listen, man. I'm not trying to rush you out of here. I will let you know that your coat is hung up right by the door in the hallway. But do you want to give us just a little one more teaser on your review of the film? One quick take before Jim and I kind of do our usual multi-hour epic. Although we do have a target, folks, to be done in 2 hours today. Anyway, shoot, go for it, dude. I will say
this is a film that theaters are open down here, so this is definitely a film that is worth seeing on the big screen. It is worth paying the extra money to see it on the big screen. It's also the first MCU movie to hit big screens in 2 years and 7 days. Spider-Man Far From Home started July 2nd, 2019. So it's been 2 years since our last MCU movie. And by the way, we're getting 4 MCU movies in the last 6 months of 2021. So we're kind of whetting the appetite for getting back in the swing of things, going back to theaters, be able to see everything blowing up on the big screen. Lots of good action in this film. I really liked it. It's not a perfect film, but if the standard is nailing the center character correctly, getting that perspective of whoever the center of the character is, whether it's Black Panther or Iron Man, in this case Black Widow.
This is like 30% of his 5-minute review here. One more thought.
Yeah, they nailed the big strokes in my opinion, and the CGI was good. And anyone who knows me knows that I hate CGI. I hate computer graphics, but they did a good job with it in this film. Yeah. It all matches well.
Fantastic. Well, listen, Brian, first of all, thank you very, very much for being willing to do this all over again, even though some of the stuff you're talking about is already being dated. Thank you for coming back on live. Yeah, it is always better live. I just want to tell everyone, I will link his review. I'll pin it in a comment. His review to whatever this movie is.
Black
Widow. I don't know. Something we might be talking about later. You can also on social media find Brian on Instagram at Dragon Movie Guy. Of course, YouTube Dragon Movie Guy. Brian, thanks again. You're a great friend of the show. Thank you so much for bringing your list. And I guess we're going to, a bit of a teaser here. We're going to see you in a few days to talk about the Emmy nominations anyway. So,
yes, big screen and small screen, we get all your screens covered.
Absolutely. Well, especially because, and then we can, sometime in the future, you and I will have a proper battle on whether or not the MCU is really just an overgrown television series.
Yes, we need to continue that conversation.
Yes, we do. All right, my friend. Thank you so very much for coming.
Stay cool down there.
Thank you, Jim.
Stay hydrated.
Yes.
All righty, everybody. And now I'm gonna show Brian the door.
Okay, see you, Brian. Cut some off.
It's always a tough one, eh? We don't. You know what? We need like a digital door where it's actually okay. Well, goodbye. Instead of the usual where it's anyway. I'm pressing a button now.
I listened to one of the true crime podcasts that I listened to, and they've incorporated these footsteps from the beginning, like the whole open the door, footsteps walking to the desk, pulling out the chair. And I think they hate it now, but they're sort of committed to it. So they're like, okay, now we can start our conversation. But anyhow, production values.
Production values. All right, Jim. I'm going to send you off quickly while I intro the show. Let's get the show started. Everyone, you've heard it before, you hear it again. We're looking at Black Diamond, the MCU's latest feature film entry. The log line, here's the log line from IMDb. A film about Natasha Romanoff in her quests between the films Civil War and Infinity War. Truly the laziest of all, log line I've seen to date. From Disney Plus, it goes, Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff, a.k.a. Black Widow, confronts darker parts of her ledger when a dangerous conspiracy with ties to her past arises. Pursued by a force that will stop at nothing to bring her down, Natasha must deal with her history as a spy and the broken relationships left in her wake long before she became an Avenger. All right, let's get into what I like to call the social nutrition checklist for Black Widow. All right, reframe stamp. I actually think it's going to get one. Woman lead, majority woman cast, woman director. Yeah, I think this is going to get a reframe stamp. Is it union made? Yes, it is. Now, getting into the story, does it pass the Bechdel test? Yes, it does. And of course, that leads us to, is it a class conscious film? Unfortunately, no. So that would give our social nutrition checklist, and let's bring Jim back on the screen here. This gives our checklist, Jim, a score of 75%, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Especially when none of the reframe stamp and the Bechdel test, none of them were, well, we found one scene,
Yeah.
Like it's a solid film on those markers. And yeah, the MCU, in my opinion, is pretty right wing. So I'm not shocked that the class consciousness part is not there.
That's funny too, because more like an ideology consciousness, but they don't even really. We know that Americans and the Russians are different and have been enemies in the past, but they don't really expound upon that as much as they could have, I don't think.
Well, you know what? Let's
Sure.
start at the beginning. But yeah, you've raised some interesting points for when we get into that. That's great. Yeah, but before we do, maybe we should say hello to everyone in the chat. We do have some folks. First of all,
many of the Russian plants have not identified themselves.
yeah. All right. First of all, we've got Richard L. in the house. Woo. Good to see you, Richard. Thanks for coming by. And, Katie Fowler who's asking if it's Black Diamond.
You had referred to the movie as Black Diamond just when you were introducing it.
Yeah, so. Struggling with my words as I do.
Yeah, just so you know.
More than on occasion. Oh yeah, that's what I figured.
Me too.
But I like Jim, cheese-powered superhero. Now that's a superhero I could get behind. All right, so yeah, let's get into the show now.
You bet.
And first, we have quick review. Jim.
Well, I really enjoyed Black Widow's sister. I mean, Black Widows. I mean, Black Widow. Yeah, or The Americans, as I thought it might be about 5 minutes in. Yeah, another entry. It feels like it's been a while, even though you could spend a whole month catching up on all the other MCU movies. This one, I don't know what to think. I'm glad it veered away from the Saturday Night Live version, which was called Black Widow: Age of Me, and it had to deal with her romantic relationship with Ultron, which was, if you get a chance,
as she was struggling to break into the fashion magazine business.
Yes, a la Devil Wears Prada. So it's totally worth checking out. We probably can't link to it for copyright reasons, but it's Scarlett in that one as well, and she's very game, as Rob and I have discussed. She's actually crying at one point in this humorous, because her heart's broken, and so that was quite good. But in terms of this movie, my old pal David Harbour always gets a gym pass, and that's good, a gym pass. I just thought of that. Anyway, yeah. Fantastic cast. Really not a big cast when you think of it. Like the people with actual speaking parts is fairly limited. But
Jim
I
Pass.
guess I think thing that and we can talk about the purpose of this movie later and its placement and its timing. We haven't hit the spoiler zone yet, I don't think. But I think it does have a particular purpose, and so much as to say, holy crap, was Florence Pugh ever great in it? She was funny and charismatic and watchable, and did the physical stuff, and yeah, really great cast. So almost overshadowed Scarlett, but yeah, I enjoyed it. Was it one of the elite of the MCU universe? Which I consider something like Ragnarok or Spider or something like that. No, but it's a good entry. I think anyway.
Okay, for myself, Jim, I actually am putting this in my top 5 of of MCU movies. I thought it was thematically committed. It hit those emotional notes right. It had just the right amount of humor. Like, I've seen some hot takes on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube even about too many jokes, and I'm like, I thought it had just the right amount of jokes, and it didn't use it to kill the mood. You know, it let we've said it so many times, it would let an emotional moment breathe.
Yes.
It would let us be in an emotional moment. Yeah, I got to admit, I mean, of course, like all of these, Jim, all of these superhero movies, you've got to be along for the ride. There are moments where it's like, well, that's a little ridiculous. But yeah, I think this is now in my top 5, even though I both, and we'll get to this when we talk about meaning, I both love I both love and detest the worldview of this film. The obsession with the ledger, even though we're really talking about child soldiers, I think that's what makes for a really good movie. Again, it's not necessarily, is it the best? No, but I think it's one of the better efforts. Top 5, yeah. And I'm usually, I got a top 5. That's all I'll say now. And as we get into it further, I will elaborate on why I believe it's worthy of being in the top 5 of what this is already 20 plus movies.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Quickly, is it worth your time?
Yes. Yeah.
I concur. Definitely worth the audience's time. I don't believe I'm steering anyone wrong here. Okay, with that out of the way, let's quickly, we got a couple of comments already. First of all, we got the I am. You know what? Richard L says Jim Pass equals hot take, and yeah, I got to come up with a Jim Pass.
I got to write that down so I don't forget that.
Few more of this nonsense. Jim Pass. No one's.
I get one per movie.
There's some guy named Dragon Movie Guy in our chat who said, I love the SNL version of Black Widow.
Yeah, it's great.
Good to see you. Thanks for sticking around, man. Richard L. does say it. I just wanted to read this before we got into the meat of the show and into the spoiler zone. But Richard L. says, have seen maybe half the MC movies and would put this among the top ones as well. Most I am disappointed in. This one has believable personalities, non-cardboard characters, and emotional moments. Yeah, couldn't agree with you more, Richard. Okay.
I see Richard is actually a superhero named Oxford Comma. I think you'd appreciate that, actually.
I love that, and I suspect Richard would too. I suspect that's a comment for the best chat in the internet.
There you
go. Okay, folks, we are in the spoiler zone now. I do want to make one more little aside before we start talking about the craft, etc. Some of you may notice I am actually using a different microphone right now, not the one I usually use. Part of that is, and he's a friend of the show, Curtis Judd, sometimes a chatter, a pretty regular lurker, which is all awesome. He was kind enough to let me, I have a few microphones. He was kind enough to let me go on to his live stream today. I did a test, a blind test, and all his chatters, and there's some of the, I mean, it's Curtis Judd audio. It's all those audio nerds like myself, and they're pretty picky. Anyway, they all thought that this mic sounded the best on mine, and so I said, hey, the crowd spoke, and I actually, if it was up to me, I was leaning towards a different microphone, but they figured this was the best, so I'm running with the crowd wisdom here. And I will link to that as well in a pinned comment, because we had a lot of fun, for the 3 microphone nerds that might be out there. Oh, and here we go. Somebody from that chat.
Speak of the devil.
That is correct. This is not just the this is not just the TechZone audio product Stellar X2, but it is the one I bought from Curtis Judd because he was kind enough to review it, a suggestion of mine, and actually get another guy to debate, well, not to debate, but to discuss differences of opinion on this kind of stuff. And he signed it. So
oh my God.
You can see it with all this crap on it, but,
Well, that's very cool.
Anyway.
I'm getting the impression of Chris Judd and I found this out, that salesmen that usually try to sell Ernie on some street, something like a snowman or something, is actually has a name, Lefty the Snowman. So I'm picturing Curtis Judd as a microphone selling, hey, want to buy a microphone? Lefty the salesman.
The absolute reverse is Curtis Judd. Well, you've seen he's been on the show before. All right. Ono Coffee, great to see you. Thanks so much for popping in. I appreciate it. And yes, it is. You can go back to the rest of the chatters and in the second best chat on the internet and say, yeah, Rob really did listen to the crowd. All right. Enough of that. We're in the spoiler zone now. I've announced that multiple times. Let's talk about the craft. Jim, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I think most of all, I was sort of charmed by the cast. I was really, in terms of their abilities, really Rachel Weisz, David Harbour, and Florence Pugh. What a great family unit they make, and the sort of all their conflict, which will come up in story. But in terms of their ability to act, David Harbour is kind of like, competent but deluded male, and faulty father figure. Florence Pugh, I just have to say, is that she's funny when it's called for. She's interesting, and there's sort of a little bit of a meta thing where she makes fun of Black Widow's poses and things like that. Anyway, that the way she plays her role, I should concentrate on. But just what a force. And Rachel Weisz was a little bit of a low key thing. I sort of wish you could get clues from the way the opening credits, because she was credited as and Rachel Weisz. So that sort of tells you she's going to be in the movie a little less than the others. And I hate being thrown off by that. It's almost like seeing too much in a trailer or something like that. But so the cast was all great. In terms of the look of it, I was so along for the ride. In terms of details, there were some story aspects I'm more concentrated on, but I thought the look was good. It was one of those continent-spanning movies where you're in Morocco 1 minute and Norway the next. Almost travel-loggy a little bit, and in terms of the sound too, I'm just trying to think if using American Pie as sort of the a little bit of a theme, at the start, like a little bit of a memory trigger.
I thought you're thinking of the movie series, of course. No, Mr. McLean's classic.
Yes. Yeah, and so that was kind of a neat little touch. But so it's really, especially when David Harbour sort of tunelessly started to sing it, halfway through the movie, just to sort of, get the parental feelings going again. So, in terms of, I know we're always talking about sound. What did you think of in terms of the sound and the soundtrack? And
you know what, as far as I was concerned, everything was to, like, the production design, the soundtrack, all to the MCU's very high standards.
Yeah.
Was it anything beyond that? It's certainly not, and nor should it be. Like, I really love when a film is well calibrated.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Loki and the production design there, and the TV series Loki, and it's weird and 70s futurism and Terry Gilliam and all this stuff, but it's calibrated to the subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense there. Whereas here, this is a little more of your realistic, on the ground MCU movie. And so I thought all that was to their high standards, and it was appropriately calibrated.
Yeah.
There is nothing low key about low key. So that would be my, as far as that goes. I think it was really, they've gotten all that other stuff down. It's about, can they get the performances?
Yeah.
And but before I get into my shtick, I'll hand it back to you, Jim, for if there's anything else you wanted to add.
I was sort of wondering what you thought of the big, when the city, the Sky City or the Red Room, is crashing to
Everybody
Earth.
gets a city in the sky.
Yeah, exactly.
All these private criminal organizations have fleets of hover aircraft.
Or in the sea, or prisons in the sea, cities in
Both.
the sky, all fake islands, whatever,
Yeah.
Mountains, I'm sure we've seen a couple times, but
which is why I never want to hear any more SHIT about space sweepers or the wandering Earth. Not that I ever get any grief about that, but anyway, sorry, Jim, continue.
They banned us in Beijing for our comments on Wandering Earth, but Yeah, I sort of was wondering, was that this sort of falling Earth, was that a bit much? But it is, it's an adventure film. It's an action film, or it's an action adventure. They're sliding down the solar paths and stuff. I know.
I was going to save some of that for actually more the story.
Yeah,
because there were moments where it's like, wow, this thing's taken a while to fall out of the air.
Well, and there's a lot of suspension of disbelief, like the Cessna flying from Ohio to Cuba on a single tank of gas, whatever. But that's a whole other thing. The writing, I thought, was I know we don't talk.
That's why the kids couldn't take any of their stuff, because it was all full of gas.
Just in terms of the structure of the thing.
Girls. Kick off your sandals before you get in plane.
Yes, exactly.
Too much weight.
And I thought the movie had time to breathe. A lot of people are complaining about sort of a top-heavy first act a little bit, but
okay, are we talking about story now?
Sort of getting into that, but just more structure. But in terms of craft, I think we covered it. Covered it all there.
I mean, for myself, I think the standout for me, again, everything else, MCU high standards. The performances here, though, and, this is great direction and a great story and all that, but the performances really stood out.
Yeah.
I think, and I did, circling back briefly to Rachel Weisz, is it Weiss or is it Weiss? I'm kind of curious.
We kind of say Weiss in this house.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, she might a German past, but is that how she was pronouncing it in England as she grew up? First of all, just a bit of a lot of times you see the and credit is they're not the star, but they have the pull that they get to go, well, I get an and credit then. Yeah. I know I'm not the star. I'm not Scarlett Johansson, but I am goddamn Rachel Weisz. So I've never seen it as a time indicator as much as it's a status indicator. A lot of times it is given to also a big star that's there for 2 seconds and goes, ooh, $1 million. That was easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Heck, you're Judi Dench, $1 million and an Oscar. What an easy day on set.
Yeah, exactly.
That said, I like the way they calibrated all these performances. They're all right. They all fit together. You didn't have any weird mush. Yeah, I thought every player knew what they needed to do, did what they needed to do. And let's go back to your SNL reference, what we talked about before. Every player was game. Mm-hmm. They were willing to lean into the ridiculous. They were willing to, at no time did you ever feel any of these players, notwithstanding Stephen Dorff's insane, please pay attention to me comments in the media of late. None of them came in like they're above this material.
Yeah.
They know what it is. They knew what they were in, and they gave it their all. And that, I think, shines. If you didn't have that, all the other stuff doesn't mean jack. It all falls apart there. So yeah, that's my take on the craft.
One other thing that I just noticed in my notes that I forgot to mention is, and somebody else, friend of mine mentioned on social media, the use of Smells Like Teen Spirit over the opening credits. And that was kind of an interesting thing because the opening credits told a lot. And it wasn't the Nirvana version. It was sort of a woman singer, a lower key.
If we could all remember when I pulled out the How to Make an Action Movie trailer,
yes,
one of it is to do a redo slow acoustic or barely copy of a classic rock song. Anyway, continue.
A denial you know, that kind of just really slow, mournful, almost like a dirge, which Smells Like Teen Spirit isn't. But on top of that, it came with the opening credits, and they showed the girls posing for what ultimately became the photo book, which I didn't pick up on immediately. But you know, later on they said, "Oh, I remember we shot all those Easter, Christmas, and Thanksgiving shots all in the same day."
Yeah.
And even though the boxes we knew were empty, I was still excited to open them. And that's what they show in the opening credits. As Smells Like Teen
I did
Spirit
not catch that play.
Oh yeah. That's
yeah.
I didn't immediately at all.
I didn't make that connection, but
and then they showed them sort of gradually going through school, and that's where the Smells Like Teen Spirit comes in, as they were parted from their family, and they all went on their own well, not kind of
Life
adventure,
tracks.
cruel adventures, cruel but I thought some people kind of raised their eyebrows, kind of rolled their eyes at that one, but I didn't mind it so much, and the style with which the opening credits were done was a totally different than the rest of it. It was kind of an interesting
setting a poignant tone for it. It's setting the right tone. This is this is a poignant film. It's a bit of a it's
about loss.
There's a poignant end.
Yeah, it's about loss. Loss of that family, loss of that structure, and that dependability.
Then we're definitely moving forward.
Yes.
So, but we'll stop on that note. Great opening tune, the way they did it. You know. Okay, first of all, let's acknowledge that we've got another chatter. We now have all three members of the Balmoral Street Research Irregulars. Let's welcome Walt Vlad65 from Walt's Flicks Picks. Good to see you here, man. You also was saying that you're pretty brave for wearing that shirt there, Jim.
The English shirt. Yeah, I had it on. I thought I'd just keep... It's a little cooler than anything cotton. It's a sort of polyester blend with other polyester, I think. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's less prone to show off sweaty bits. So that's my play.
Right. So let's move into the story, Jim.
You bet.
Yeah.
Oh, you had.
Yeah. What do you think?
Go ahead. Yeah. So I mean, some of the concern, I think, is that. Is this coming too late? As Black Widow's story has essentially already been told to its terminal end. My son and I were discussing. He said, do you think it came like 5 years too late? That Saturday Night Live was the Saturday Night Live spoof Black Widow trailer was filmed in, I think, 2016. So that was 5 years ago. Maybe it is. I mean, all these movies have a purpose, and I think for this one, the purpose was to explain a little bit about her backstory, but also to introduce us to Yelena, her sister, Florence Pugh, who comes up in the post-credit scene as well, in a fairly important post-credit scene rather. And it suggests it's almost like that whole post-credits scene changes almost the way I looked at the rest of the movie, because now you think like, oh, so this is setting her up to be something in this universe.
But she's going to be the new Black Widow.
Quick tangent. Years ago, I read, like so many of us when we were teenagers, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, about a father and son who drive a motorcycle across the states, and it's philosophical and all, basically they get to the end and he's trying to get closer to his son.
A movie that starts with Zen Buddhism, or a book that starts referencing Zen Buddhism is philosophical.
Yes, yeah, and there's all kinds of little bits. He tries to understand the motorcycle, whereas his motorcycle riding friend doesn't. He just wants to take it into a mechanic to get it fixed, and they have different approaches to that. Anyway, but it's sort of about him and his son as well, exploring the states. At the very end, there's an epilogue about how the son was killed, and it wasn't in every version. And I thought to myself a lot of times over the years that the books without that epilogue, it's not just an update, but it's a vastly different book. And it turns out that he was stabbed to death going to school in San Francisco. And I thought, well, this makes it all so much more about their relationship now, rather than just him being part of the plot, like one of 3 or 4 main characters. So in this case, this post-credit scene, I think, is like, okay, so was this all really setting up Florence Pugh as Yelena? So that was sort of one of my ways of thinking about it.
I really felt this is what, story-wise, setting up new characters and everything, this is what Indiana Jones and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull could have been. Him saying goodbye.
Oh, yeah.
Leaving it over to another one. There is so much, like, just in the way they're drawing the story, and then back to the performers, especially Scarlett Johansson. Although it's funny, actually, no one actually has said anything like maybe Scarlett Johansson has been playing the same role for a decade, more than a decade. I mean, Jesus, from the Knots, she's been playing the same role amongst other many great performances. She might be just like, no, I want to check out. Kind of done with the MCU. But she leaves so classy in this film that the film gives so much room to the other players and sets Florence Pugh up so well to be that replacement, but who's different. She's going to be different, but not in a reactionary way, even when they're having some fun with it. Now, one thing DMG said earlier, he says he felt some of the backstory and relationship stuff didn't hit as clearly as he would have wished. Small tweaks would have led to a giant peak. Small tweaks would have led to a giant peak with this film. Clarity is key. I'm not sure. I thought it was clear enough. I kind of knew who they were. I think there's maybe some tonal problems. You have that prologue, which I thought was fantastic as far as the story prologue. The time in Ohio, where Dad is coming across as a lot more competent than the kind of goofball later where she's the brains of the option. He's the, I'm like that was like kind of, who's this idiot?
Yeah.
But I was cool with the way they put it. What do you think of that, Jim, as far as those relationships?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite clear that, if anything, the Rachel Weisz character was kind of a bit. She was a sociopath, essentially. She was, starving the pig of oxygen at one point, and everyone,
that pig had 11 more seconds.
11 more seconds, but that might do damage to the brain damage to the pig as well. And
it seemed fine.
It's quite
pig
clear.
Got up.
Yeah, it's funny in the Americans, which I sort of referenced earlier, because a sleeper cell in an American city with 2 kids, and for all intents and purposes are good Americans, they turn out to be Russian spies. You know that immediately, so I'm not giving anything away. And it's sort of the jokey.
Maybe the logo, the Americans, but with the hammer and sickle, and
yeah, exactly. And
that show,
the opening scene, which is Fleetwood Mac's Tusk, and they're chasing a guy around DC, Anyway. Also, it's the show that Jonah's always trying to get Amy to watch on Superstore. But that whole bit, I think Rachel Weisz's character was a little bit more ideologically strict than her husband, perhaps. And in the Americans, it's the Kerry Russell character is a stronger communist than Matthew Rhys, which is kind of interesting.
No, it's the reverse, I think, isn't it? He's like, yeah, we got to go. And she's like, I don't want to go. I want to stay.
No, well, she's more committed to the cause, and he's
what
more
cause? If he wants to stay.
Communism.
Or if she wants to stay.
Yeah. No, she's the hard ass, and he's the one that's like,
but no, not in this film. She's like literally saying, I want to stay. She... Like
that's right too. Yeah.
Yeah. No, she was like, I want to. It's like we gotta go.
Yeah.
Okay, kids, come on.
Yeah.
It's again back to there is a bit of a tonal problem, and I'm wondering if
so. Yeah.
Because they had a lot of time to make whole other pieces of this movie.
I mean, clearly, I was a little bit concerned with where she was going because, you know, the way she ends up when she, she calls the authorities on them and all that kind of thing. So she's. But that was that part of their plan? Yeah, that's true.
She's given up.
Yeah, and
given up.
There's that mind control aspect too. So yeah. Well,
and even just fear and a lot of these in these movies, there's a Daedalus-like character who's like, well, I am a scientist and I love figuring stuff out. A Werner von Braun. I think she has she has more morals than Werner von Braun, notwithstanding almost killing the poor pig that she named after a lover that she, former colleague / lover that she's still kind of into.
Well, and remember for
whatever reason.
Remember the chemist on the first Wonder Woman movie was the scientist with the face mask because her face had been eaten away as well, but sort of a little bit of
exactly, but there's that Daedalus character. But I think they decided to give this one more, a character, and even as Scarlett Johansson, when she's giving her some redemption, and it's like, hey, you're born to this. What were you? You had no choice, because that's and we're getting a bit of theme, but I think it's a tonal problem in the way they set them up, and then when we meet them again, it's like, and mostly with the Red Guardian, it's like kind of a doofus and a bit of although I found it entertaining. I love the whole BSing about Captain America. And does he refer to me? And we're more like contemporaries. This is like just some solid comedy. Just that kind of obsession with, and I'm wondering if it's even, if they had fun on set with it, because it's also a bit of an inside baseball sort of very actor thing to, well, I'm a big deal and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, he's, sort of lording, the arm wrestling competition in the prison, and it doesn't even scare him or
bragging about non-existent combat and nuclear codes and,
Now here's one aspect that I sort of wanted to touch on today. There's a couple of them. So there's the whole concept of the MCU throwing a bone to making a female superhero movie. As they say on the SNL spoof, they said, Marvel, we're good at girl superheroes too, or something like that. So that's one thing I wanted to ask you, if you thought this was merely throwing a bone or an actual initially maybe or
do
an
we
actual
think that we've spoken enough to the story
No,
itself?
I still want to talk about, here's another thing that I wanted to bring up.
Because that, I think, is very much into the politics of the film.
Sure. We'll
which I do want to get into. Really thematic, there's a lot going on in the text, subtext, and even outside of the frame that would be great to talk about. But
so here's my story aspect is that, you and I have forever talked about the competent male, right? For years, and you had all those 80 movies about not necessarily the superhuman, but the great soldier, not the super soldier, but the great, your Jean-Claude Van Damme,
Jack Reacher now.
Yeah.
Jack Reacher.
Yeah. But your Schwarzeneggers in the past, your Stallones, all that kind of thing. So is this a move to the competent female? I'll bring up a couple things. There's 3 male characters, one of them's just sort of this, this Russian, who has
Snidely Whiplash.
Yeah, the villain. One of them's the sort of the goofball dad who's, who doesn't, who holds himself in high regard, but almost nobody else does. And then the other one, you can argue, is sort of the male version of the put upon secretary who secretly does a lot of the work, like the administrator, the guy named Mason, and he's the one that sort of supplies them, and he's the single sort of
the gopher
male.
There's always a gopher,
and the rest of them are women. And so I'm thinking, is this like a competent woman story?
I think that's a great question. First of all, as far as her character goes, yes, she is she is a female competent, the competent female. Mm-hmm. And very much right down to the whole, she gets bruised and everything, but she's always, in it. Eat this. I have a nail I can bite on, a rusty nail, tetanus on it, and that'll just toughen up, that. So yes, it is. What I loved about this versus, I mean, it wasn't like a movie killer for me, but I always cringe a little bit, and the relevant scene would be in Infinity War Endgame, where there was the quote girl power, kind of all the women get together,
like the
sort
circle.
of thing. Yeah, and it was. It's a little cringy.
A little on the nose.
I felt it was a little on the nose. But, again, nothing to wreck the film, and I get it. And, I mean, there's just too many films, and that's just one. Especially these kind of films, usually have to have some BS. It's not always, or it's not the gender-related thing. It's just the on-the-nose thing. Mm-hmm. Here, though, we have gotten to know her. We've seen her competence through several movies. So at no time do you ever feel that these other women you don't feel like like it works.
Yeah.
And yes, there's these male characters, although they put the rest in masks and apparently they're flying and they're shooting machine guns and all the other nonsense. I think it works because they have built it. It works because it's all earned. Mm-hmm. It's all earned, and it's like, well, you have the Black Widow, but no, there's a whole thing of Black Widows because they all came out of a school, and they're all, and it feeds all our fantasy, all our negative fantasies about Russia, from, they really exploit that. And
Red Sparrow
all that's, but I'm going back into the 80s and 90s even, old Soviet Union Cold War bullshit.
Red Dawn.
Yeah.
Everything with red in the title.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think this is a competent female, the competent woman. Will we see more of this? I think we are starting to see more of these. Yeah. I'm looking forward to Gunpowder Milkshake, John Wick with but with Karen Gillan. I'm looking forward to that. It is interesting to see the genre, or this micro genre, to put it in Eric Williams' parlance, come out. And so, the more the merrier. It's done well. It's earned. I'm down with it. And even it has those moments of self-awareness of Florence Pugh when she mimics the whole drop from the floor poser move. No, I'm not a poser. And,
that was great.
It's just awesome. And then they hit it again. And usually it's lame because they're going to the same joke twice. It's like, oh, wait, they had some more material. They actually were able to spin it enough that it was a new joke.
Yeah.
It's just loved that.
That was good. That was good.
Yeah.
Now, my follow-up question is, would you have seen, and this is all speculation. I don't know if there's any way to measure this. Would you have seen this 20 years ago, where you have 4 strong women, one goofy guy, one evil guy, and a sort of a.
I think we did. I believe it was called Charlie's Angels.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What's wrong with Bosley? Bosley's tight.
But no, I do. I think we've seen it.
Yeah.
Charlie's Angels. I think this is better. I've always thought Charlie's Angels was kind of a weird sort of sexism going on there and I'm not saying that there's no objectification. Like, you just have to look at the questions Scarlett Johansson is still regularly asked about her costume and her body, et cetera, to know that this character is problematic.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still way better than Charlie's Angels ever was. Although maybe, you know what, though, at the same time, Charlie's Angels is a building block for this character.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it was perfect. I asked my wife, I said, just because it's a movie with a bunch of women in cat suits having a cat fight, is that, how does that rank? Especially the sort of the towards the end. But I don't think they sort of, it wasn't done that luridly or anything.
No. And I actually I thought it was a little ugly and good in that way. Like although at the same time, well, mind you, are we done with the story? Or are you done? Because I do have a couple of things I want to say before we get into the meaning.
Yeah,
Okay. I do, and we've alluded to this before. I will say, and I think I would love to see one of these big set pieces. And we kind of get a hint, because there's the Red Guardian able to hold on, there's a big guy on a small plane on the wing, blam, 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 and then fly off. And look like he's resting now as they fly. It's like, finally I get a moment to relax.
And clipping a car on the way up. Yeah, there's a few story holes. I mean, we could.
Well, not story holes, more just nonsense.
Cuba to Ohio to Cuba on a. They would have to refill, wouldn't they? I don't know much about.
I don't know. You know what? That I'm not worried about.
Yeah.
Like if you're allowing that plane got it in the air, what are you worried about fuel?
Yeah.
Just because they didn't show us them gassing up at some midpoint does not mean. But I'm more there's a reason, and this is, no one says, oh, that's how they were able to stay above the radar. That wasn't funny. That's dumb. No one stays above the radar. That's the whole point. It's why we call below the radar. And it's yet another thing in the sky, some amazing thing in the sky, and then it takes forever to fall. And it's like, boy, they have a lot of time for this thing to fall. And they're even falling faster. It's like, oh, as we're falling in free fall, and then this thing's going, and then they slide down, and it's like, nothing makes sense here.
Yeah.
But And so, I think that, this, and they love that MCU, these comic books, this type of comic book, love if there's an American thing, there's got to be a Russian thing. There's got to be a Hydra thing. They all have the same stuff. Yeah. Every secret organization gets a city in the sky. Every secret organization. And I think that actually, after a while, it's like, I feel like I am, there's a Mugatu in Zoolander going, am I the only one in Crazy Pills?
Yeah, exactly.
Where are they building these things?
Oh, I know.
How does this make any sense whatsoever? So I wouldn't mind a little restraint in future films. I don't think that's going to happen, but those are times where I think story-wise, it can actually take you out of it. I think the Bond series in the last, at least in Casino Royale, tried to, okay, we've had laser shootouts in space, and we've really, we're surfing and we're doing all kinds of crazy crap. Let's bring it home a little. And I think there'll be a point for the MCU where they're going to have to, at least on these more grounded films, set on Earth, doing Earth stuff. You can let Thor do whatever the heck he wants, but
yeah.
All right. Meaning, I think. Yeah, like again, the story has a beginning, middle, and end. It hits all the right beats at the right times. I didn't feel anything was out of order, or maybe that tone shift between the mother and father we met in the prologue and then the mother and father we meet in the that is like, well,
present,
these do not feel like those folks, but sure, what the hell, let's run with it.
Well, and actually the last thing I wanted to ask you about story that I posed to myself was, do you think it almost as much, I think more than almost any other movie, although I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of all of them, this seemed to be apart from the MCU. I mean, they had William Hurt in it for a few seconds. There was references to other characters, but it's really kind of a standalone movie in a lot of ways. Not in every way, but in a lot of ways, while still being connected to the MCU. Do you think that, benefit in terms of story, not incorporating other characters, did that benefit it? Did it make it stronger?
Oh, it helped it.
Yeah,
for sure. Like, don't call it Black Widow. Call it the Avengers, whatever. Even if you think of Captain America, the Winter Soldier, it's still his story with a couple of other characters. It's not a big, it's not 82 people. Yeah. DMG does make a great point. He's like, he loved the Red Room, the city in the sky. Reminded me of Natasha watching Moonraker in the beginning, which is a great,
Moonraker.
and she's like literally knows it off by heart, which I thought was a nice moment. You're absolutely right. A nice bit of foreshadowing there. That's a fantastic reference, DMG. So okay, let's move into, we did get a number of comments. I want to quickly just kind of jump through a few of these, Jim, before we move into the meaning. First of all, DMG says they could do 2 more sequels with Scarlett Johansson, like a Godfather 2 version. Natasha building the red on the ledger, full storyline, and the Budapest rising.
Yeah, they still have to deal with that at some point, I think.
Yeah. Well, do they, though?
Well, they keep on leading to it, so it's sort of like a Rogue One kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
I think.
Well, if they give Clint a movie and F. Clint.
Well, apparently he's in trouble.
Good. Second sequel could be between Infinity War and Endgame, slowly losing Clint. Yeah, as Clint turns into a serial killer. A racist serial killer. One of the other, where is it? Okay, here. And this is maybe a great way to set up, Richard says, this is a great way to set up us talking about meaning. It bugged me that parents descended into Russian caricatures. They started out blending in as Ordian Americans, but using broken English. He has braids. He's dropping references to vodka. Jim, what do you think? What do you think?
I mean, already said that Harbour gets the gym pass, but he is sort of like his character is kind of a
gym pass.
Got to come up with a graphic for that now.
I do, yeah.
I mean, he's more than the rest of them. His character, not David Harbour's playing, not Dave's playing of the role, but his character's kind of one note compared to the others. Like he especially in the contemporaneous section, like the current day section. So yeah, he's a little bit. They're not quite. Who are the two on Bullwinkle? Natasha and Boris. they're not quite like that. Interestingly, I actually I rewatched an episode of Things We Do in the Shadows, or What We Do in the Shadows, the vampire show set in New Jersey, but I think filmed in Toronto. And Nando,
maybe you can. Okay, continue. Sorry,
his accent sounded a lot like David Harbour's accent in this movie, and so I kept on getting these little flashes back to this vampire. But yeah, I mean, I guess you could have fleshed them out a bit. I guess I'm kind of waffling, but it didn't bug me so much. But I recognize that they were maybe not, they did sort of approach caricaturization a little bit. What did you think?
Well, I think, and this maybe, and I'll start with this, and I'll continue for a bit on the thematic problems I had with this film before I get into praising it. There's a part of me, even as I was watching, it's like, boy, these folks must be like, oh, I'm so glad the Russians are the enemy again. Because, we get to pull out all this old BS that was looking a little stale, and you can only do the Russian gangster oligarch thing so often, and that's not really our shtick, so how do we incorporate that? Now all of a sudden they get to have this spy thing because Putin's such a caricature. That said, I think it's not just, the problem isn't just with those characters being, Russian caricatures. It's more this idea of this, again, this Russian, and this is something that we've seen for like a lot in like the last 40, 50 years of, Cold War Russian, it referred to in James Bond, etc. This idea that Russia has the same stuff, that they're just, the competition is neck and neck. And what have we learned? No, never were. Like they had to spend pretty much everything just being behind the Americans. Mm-hmm. But the Americans need an enemy that is as good, if not greater, because they'll do eviler things. So they have all the same gizmos and they'll just do terrible things. And so it becomes this ridiculous, this idea that, because the Americans have to be the underdog. And the only time they kind of acknowledge the reality is the moment where, and again, another great moment with Florence Pugh's character, the soon-to-be the new Black Widow, where she's like, well, you don't do crazy. It's hey, if something happens to you, one of the big Avengers comes, and, which is all built in a little moment, but also acknowledging, that there is no power equalization here. There's this ridiculous disparity, but for the most part, this Russian bogeyman, this secret fifth columnists and we know how the Russians are, let's say, working over the West, if we even want to look at it that way. It's through Twitter bots and like just the cheapest low rent way they can, because they can't afford it. It's funny. I did a deep dive. Russia has the same size of economy as Canada, except it's about 4.5 times the population. Canada doesn't have a nuclear force it's got to maintain. Canada doesn't have some ridiculous ridiculous military it has to maintain.
Yeah.
It doesn't have military adventures in Georgia, in Syria, in support, propping up these rebels in Ukraine, this other foreign, they don't have that. This is what dictators do to maintain any kind of control. That's a poor country that's barely holding on. And so it's always kind of laughable when we see these. Again, it's leaning into old Cold War tropes. And again, who's building that? Who can afford that? Oh, right, no one. And as we've learned, what do they do when they steal all this money? They're funneling it out as quickly as they can. It's in London condos. It's in New York City condos. I mean, it's laughable and sad. And so that, I think, so I'm kind of okay with the caricaturization of those two, in part. Hey, already Mr. Harbour's got the gym pass. Who might argue with that? But even Rachel Weisz, because they're still interesting characters. They still are characters who want to do things and move forward, and they're doing stuff. So I'm cutting it a lot of slack. I mean, we're still talking about, this alleged spy, who, if you ever met her anywhere, would be like, I remember the first day I saw her, like,
Oh yeah.
Just no. So
Try to
I'm
blend
okay.
in.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Lay low. I'm okay, but I kind of see where Richard's coming from. But I think it's more think about the whole thing in its context. It's like, wow, this is even the ideological conflict. And it's like, no, you're two world powers, one that was forced to compete with another.
Yeah.
Just to maintain control over its own. What it already had, its own weird paranoia about Germany, although reasonable in 1946 Germany or Russia, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
And it was going, well, what did they just do? Twice. But yeah, I think that this is one of the things I can't stand about the film. Can't stand about the themes.
Yeah.
Another one, though, because I'm going to keep going. I got a bit of a rant.
Sure.
Jim, it really bugged me, and it bugged me about this character. Why? Which is also why I think it's such a good movie, such a good film, is I got into the character so much that I felt bad for her. Her constant worrying about her ledger. It's like, you were a child soldier. Anything you did, we got to cut all of the slack. We don't, it's a child soldier. It's not an indoctrinated. This is not somebody, I was lured by a clickbait on the internet, which I'm always kind of, you're still an adult, right? No, these are children soldiers. And this is what kills me about this character and the way she is never allowed to be redeemed. Never once. And it bugs the living you-know-what out of me.
This is the Taskmaster that you're talking about, or
no, Natasha Romanoff.
Oh, no,
always
okay.
Every movie, her ledger comes up, and and she's a child soldier. We learn this.
Yes, yeah.
We always kind of knew it, but now we know it. Mm-hmm. You were stolen as a baby. How can any? And this is what kills me, is it comes out of a culture that, it talks about, and all these superhero movies have really Christian subtext. They all kind of spring from that well. And it's like, how can you call yourselves Christian? And never once is this woman given any grace. Never once is it, you know what, your slate's clean. Especially kind of blameless anyway, or at least for the most part. Not even acknowledging it's like, wow, is it evil of S.H.I.E.L.D. to say, do what you got to do to get the bad guy. You know, even
We
that,
know how
like
you
what are
operate.
the moral, and so here's this character who's forever trying to not just get out physically, but also to get out mentally, to free herself of that debt. And it's like, has no one read the Lord's Prayer? It's forgive me my sins, forgive me my trespasses, forgive me my debts. And it's, wow, how can, so here's the MCU, and it's like, nope, this woman gets no slack, and she will have to sacrifice herself. Meanwhile, Tony Stark gets to do just about whatever the hell he wants.
From the
At
first
times
movie.
he's guilty. He does have a real arc and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel bad for the character. This sucks. And it's the dark side of it. I think it shows something dark thematically within the MCU. And it is unfortunate. It takes away a bit of the joy. But it does add to the poignancy of the character. Even as she's like, once again, it's like, Jesus Christ, there's whether they did it on purpose or not, there's a bit of a theme of, well, I guess the woman's got to, I remember an old coworker once, we did help someone, and she's like, she rolls up her sleeves, all right, guess it's time for a lesbian to get the job done. She was gay, of course. But yeah, there she is. Well, I guess I'll go break some folks out of jail. I'll go deal with this stuff. And it's like, wow, who eventually, where even was Captain America saying, you know what? You're carrying way too much on your shoulders. Where is Tony Stark saying, you know what you actually need? Why don't you take a year off? We'll somehow manage. There's 20 of us. We got the space god. Well, you need therapy. That's what you need.
Yeah.
You need some time off, a regular job, and therapy. And that really bugs me.
That's a good point.
That said, all of that said, Jim, on the positive side, boy, oh boy, and we saw it in Guardians of the Galaxy. We see it. So the Guardians of the Galaxy, certainly in Thor, especially Thor Ragnarok, but all the Thor movies, like how much they lean into this idea of family. Captain America, Winter Soldier really is about his buddy, his brother from a different mother, and his brother in arms, and how he's like, I'm not leaving that soldier on the battlefield. But yeah, family, and the way they handle it, the way they handle that trauma and that upset, but also even the day-to-day. There's the moment which could have really been a lame bit of, oh, you're slouching, you're not slouching, oh, we're not going to do this. And there's Florence Pugh off camera, but you hear, that's not even fair, I wasn't doing anything. Which is such a legitimate younger kid. Wait, why am I in trouble now?
Yeah.
Like anyone who's had brothers and sisters, there's going to be someone, because someone flips out, and the one is, well, why am I getting? It's her fault.
Yeah.
But even the harder moments, the way they lean into family, and the way they give time, and the way they've committed to that idea of family going beyond the biological, and we've talked about this before, the found family, or in this case, the government designed and ordered. I think that's really cool, and I think that they give it time and they let it breathe. One of the things that I've always found so wanting in DCEU films, especially the Zack Snyder films, is it's like, I'm not buying any of these family members. They talk family with a capital F or with a capital M, but they're making the Fast and Furious films look better as far as a commitment thematically to family.
My mother's name is Martha too.
Yeah.
Oh, what are we doing?
Let's see if I can find that meme. Anyway, so that would be. I do like the overt themes of family and of approachment, of forgiving each other. because there is forgiveness in this film. There is, forgiveness and atonement with them all, but especially between the sisters, which we also see in Guardians of the Galaxy with what's her name and Kira.
Yes.
Gamora.
Yes.
Gamora. Yeah. And so we see that, and here we're seeing an even stronger version and a more relatable one, just because it's like, well, one woman's green and the other's a robot. I mean, it's and it's got a weird father thing, but that's also another theme that seems to go in with this idea of how do you recover from abuse, and labeling the abuser. Now it gets a little. I want to call it feminism 2.5, not even 3. There's no intersectionality to it, which I think is such an important part of feminism 3, the third wave feminism. But there is at least this idea, little on the nose at the end, the whole almost kind of a right-wing white slavery deal about, oh, girls, the extra resource that is all trash or something. It's like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
There you go, Jim. There's my big thematic dump.
Good rant. So as we
chat's all going, oop, there's Rob the Communist on his on his horse called Solidarity.
It'll be Exhibit A in the big trials in 20 years, I guess. Or why'd we make a permanent record? So that earlier point, is this throwing a bone to the idea of the female superhero giving her own movie for the DC, for the MCU, rather, or is it a genuine outing?
I think it's a genuine outing.
Yeah. And now I feared that it would be the one. There was a couple things I feared here.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was that it would be just sort of almost like that Saturday Night Live spoof. Another thing was that you'd introduce these really interesting characters, and because we don't hear from them at other points, I thought, well, they're all dead, obviously. Like I prejudged it. I thought, nope, her family's all going to die. They're all going to sacrifice themselves for each other. And furthermore, there is a little bit of a sub category, I think, of interesting MCU characters that lasted one movie and were killed. So you have Stanley Tucci in the Captain America movie. And then you had the Middle Eastern doctor that helped out Tony Stark in the first Iron Man movie. I really like him. I can't even remember his name, and they've never referred to him again. Super great character. And when they were in prison they were in that cave, and it was a really strong character. And of course, they killed him. And I was really worried that Florence Pugh would be another one in the subcategories of MCU
when
characters.
She's got the stick at the end, it's like, I better not die because I'm into her now.
Well,
I need to see her in future films.
And even little things like there was a little bit of a slow motion where she's saying goodbye at the end. I thought, oh, here comes the sniper bullet. I thought
this would be a cool way to die.
Well, and I was really worried because they I wouldn't say it's a habit, but they have gotten rid of interesting, important characters pretty quickly in some cases. That Stanley Tucci character that helps out Cap. And I think the first Captain America movie, he was a great character, but he lasted about a third of the movie. So
I think some of these characters are Obi-Wan-esque. They do their job and then they have to die.
Mm-hmm.
At least, and give it this, there's no girlfriend in the fridge in any of these MCU movies. There's no. I am motivated. We've killed the girlfriend. We've killed the wife. We've killed the child, strictly to motivate the character's vengeance arc.
That's Tom Clancy territory.
Yeah. And there's so many other films, right?
Yeah.
Like it's always hard. And going back to your, is this a throw, kind of, hey, look, we did a woman's film. Now we're going to go back to what we're doing. I'm thinking of Peppermint, which was not a very successful. There was two. One Peppermint starring
Jennifer Garner.
Jennifer Garner, and then there's that Blake Lively, the rhythm section. Another one about, the becoming an expert to avenge, and I think this one is a very successful. Yeah, you could. You could. And I think that's what Atomic Blonde was trying to do. You could have a whole franchise just wrapped around, I am glad, though, that it's within the MCU and that she has an arc. I'm not, I've said it before, I think part of the reason I'm not a big James Bond fan is I'm kind of, it's like, the guy never grows, never dies, never nothing. Like, of course he's going to live. Of course it's all going to be all right. Of course, like, I'm what are we actually watching, and also they're all just so emotionally cut off. Whereas Natasha has, she hurts and we get to see it.
Yeah.
We get to experience it. We get to see choices she's made because of it. We get to see the heart. It's interesting. What could be a lame line in any other film where she's actually referring to, where Rachel Weisz refers to, oh, don't lose your heart, is lame, except we've seen it in every film. We've seen it in every film, and the way she deals with Bruce Banner. Bruce Banner is the Hulk, right?
Yep.
Thank you. The way she deals with everyone, she is that emotional rock, the one who, does, do her best to, be emotionally supportive of everyone, while still being the kick-ass, spy, super spy, competent woman that she is, makes her a far more interesting character than James Bond will ever be to me.
Yeah. What's
DMG,
the one line? The one line when they're being attacked in New York City, and somebody says, "Oh, here comes the party," and what did she say? What do you mean? What's your definition of party? And the big sort of flying millipede is coming towards them. But
they got a great cast, but like everything, all those pieces were there. DMG talking about Natasha and the Ledger. This is an interesting point, and he's got actually a couple of these things. I actually like that Natasha cares about her Ledger. It's her mission for redemption, absolutely. She doesn't get the religious forgiveness, and she isn't a character of faith. She's a character of instability, of dealing with unstable nation states, and as a spy, she's the one making them unstable. Natasha is the ultimate in practical pluses and minuses and taking responsibility. I disagree with that, DFG. You know what? It's not that she doesn't get the I'm not talking about her as an individual going, oh, dear Lord, forgive me. I'm more this is a film that's saying she does not get forgiveness. Not because she doesn't, but because the film says, no, I think it's part of the meaning of the film that her ledger will always be red. There's never any black. There's never enough black to even it out. And I think that's a choice of the filmmakers, not something that naturally springs from the character. That said, I am glad you brought it up. I also am glad that he brought up this. Bucky couldn't be Cap's brother in arms. He had to be his brother in arm.
Why you?
I'm not sure it really is one of these, but I think we got to give that a hot take.
Yeah, you can't waste those. We gotta use that. We gotta use those things.
That's a pretty good one. Okay, Katie says, I don't understand Alexei's character arc. He went from being seemingly competent, slick, and confident at the beginning to be goofy, cocky, and unable to read a room. Yeah, that's I agree. I think that's the one of the story weaknesses of the film. Not like a film killer, but yeah, it is. It's you meet him in the second act, and you're like, who's this doofus? Like,
I think the way that they would explain it, and I don't know if I agree or disagree with it. I think the prison system really broke him because he went, as we're led to believe, he went straight into prison and sort of went insane, after being in Ohio. But like directly. So
yeah. I think first I want to quickly go back. I'm not sure if he's still here. Maybe he's just lurking. But Curtis Judd did come by. I want to, if he's still here, I do want to say that I did refer to the whole adventure on your channel, and what a great time it was. Anyway, Curtis, great seeing you here. We also have another new person in the chat. Again, because we've got an active chat tonight. Sean from Lost in the Real. Thinking it's definitely a genuine outing. Yeah, I think we all agree with you. Jim definitely enjoyed. We both give it. It's worth your time. I'm actually putting it in my top 5 MCU films, even as I rant about the themes. Again, part of what makes a great film is you can have these conflicts and these complications. So where are we here? I think, okay, there's a lot of, as always, the chat is having its own adventure regarding some James Bond films. Katie does continue in, though. Katie says, I feel like the goofy character use in MCU movies a bit out of place. When Thor let himself go in Avengers Endgame. I think that you've got a point there, Katie. I think the one when he let himself go in Endgame was as much about just a man who's depressed. Yeah. Oh, there is a great video. I think it's from Pop Culture Detective. I will set a link where it talks about boys don't cry, and Thor is a guy who's lost everything by the end of Infinity War. He's lost everything. At the beginning of the film, he kills Thanos and he's just done. And so, he gets depressed and he's showing all those signs of depression and loss and ennui. But I will link that video, and if might even send it to you in a DM, Katie. Great video to watch. It might get certainly a much better explanation than I'm giving you of why that character may be the way they are, and also why we may not like that character being that way. But that's a great point.
She does have a good point, and I think tonally it's weird. I personally like that they took Thor and completely, they took everything from him. Yeah. His family, his home, his weapon, one of his eyes, his body, they totally took him down and built him back up again, even as different hair. Back when I was a kid, when Thor was in the comic book store, the character bored me to tears. I didn't care about him. It was it was blandly drawn. It's just a square draw with the blonde hair. And I think they really sort of made him interesting. And I think Chris Hemsworth has the chops to pull it off nicely. Yeah, tonally, I think I like what they did with him overall. At times, tonally, he was sort of the jokey guy, which is maybe a bit counterintuitive.
Or the butt of jokes.
Yeah. But
like the sandwich comments and that later on as he's sitting there in the corner drinking,
but certainly not uninteresting. Just tonally a little bit off too. Yeah. And you can argue that they're using depression as humor, which is maybe not the coolest thing in the world to do. But
which is, I think, what's interesting about Katie's comment, and also what's interesting about I just can't remember everything about it, but. I will link this video and I will send it to anyone who's interested. I'll send a link in the DM, but I'll definitely pin it. under the DMG Black Widow thing. You know, the thing that I'm going to do later. But yeah, thanks, Katie. Great point. And
Yes.
there is something to be said. Let's go to the first half. Is that at times, you know, are you just? I mean, there are films that do a worse job of it, but at times it's like, okay, could you pull back a little on the goofy? Mind you, would we notice if they did then? Or do they just fall into the background because everything is at 10? I was going to say 11. Oh. The 5-minute movie review, putting the DM in DMG. Yeah, I think there's a lot to say there. Lost in the Real, right there with me. I think it's definitely in his top 7 MCU films. Yeah, I was like you said, Jim, when we were talking about quick review. I was like, oh, is this going to be any good? When are we going to reach peak superhero? When is it going to be, wow, this has jumped the shark? It's not with this film. I found it one of the most mature outings they have had. And again, even the stuff I can't stand thematically is still, boy, this film knows what it wants to be. Right at the very beginning, the bucolic Ohio small town, and I'm going to say it, boy, is the MCU white. Notwithstanding the fact that they have, yes, there are black lead characters, absolutely, but it is a fantasy world that, I mean, I would love to see just once Falcon and Cap were out on the having a bite to eat and seeing Falcon get harassed by 20 police. and Cap going, it wasn't like this back in my days. Well, no, because that all happened in the South. You know,
well,
something.
they did that in the Falcon and the Snowman. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. There was a scene, I think, where they're walking down the street and they get pulled over by the cops.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
not in a movie.
Commit to the bit.
Yeah.
Commit to the bit.
Also, here's what I was thinking of just over the past couple of days. What would so, you know, we're talking about sort of stripped away, you know, scaled back. Imagine a movie that's a bottle episode version of an MCU movie, a two-hander. Could you imagine something like that?
That's an interesting idea, Jim. You know what? Let's put a pin in that. We've got other let's put a pin in that because there's other MCU movies coming out this year, and I will cover at least one of them.
Maybe
that's
an
interesting idea. I think, though, Jim, it's time. We got a couple of things to do, and we've also I have committed. Jim and I talked about this. We're going to do our damnedest to end in 2 hours, which means we've got 5 minutes left to wrap this baby up. But before we get into the rest of our agenda, I do think it is time to shamelessly beg you all for a like. And perhaps a subscription if you haven't already, too. And then, of course, last but certainly not least, please ring that bell.
I'm the new superhero, the bell ringer. My skills are somewhat limited. Sonic weapon.
All right, Jim, before we get into our final thoughts and wrap everything up, why don't you tell us what we're looking at next week, and at a special time with another special guest.
Yeah, I hope I'm going to pronounce this correctly. We're going back to the subcontinent and taking a look at a kaleidoscope of a movie called Bahubali. I think I pronounced it okay.
I think you did a great job.
Bahubali? Yeah, going back to going back to the source, it's funny. I just watched a Satyajit Ray movie this week. It was quite good, but this is totally different. That was like a kitchen sink drama that I watched, but this is like a fantasy movie,
a big epic
Indian mythology, and I think it's about 500 on a 1 to 10 scale. So it'll be quite an interesting watch there. Yeah.
And we will be doing that. We will be with our man in Chennai, Shashank Vachari. Really looking forward to collaborating with him again. He is going to be on the show next week. We are going to be doing it next Sunday morning because, of course, Chennai is 10 and a half hours ahead. He is a student, many reasons. So that'll be a breakfast lunch thing. There's some discrepancy of whether we're doing it at 9 a.m. Central Daylight Time or 10 a.m. Central Daylight Time. Jim will be on the West Coast then, so we're still working that out, but it will come out shortly. Another thing I wanted to put on everyone's radar is yes, this Thursday, 8 p.m. Central Daylight Time, myself, or a number of us are going to be here. I have gotten a panel, a veritable who's who of folks in our subscription tier of folks to comment on the Emmy nominations, which will be coming out on Tuesday. We're all going to get together Thursday and editorialize on that. That's all part of a new Thursday night show I'm hoping to do. I'm going to call it Rob's Hot Mic. That's what it's called, and it's news, views, and reviews. See what I did there? A little bit of a rhyme. Looking forward to that. So that will, there'll be a proper thumbnail and all that other stuff coming out shortly, which is all the more reason to make sure you are following Jim at JHBoyko on Twitter, and then, of course, me on Twitter at Rob Christensen. And so what else? Let us move. Let's keep moving. Oh, one more thing. There will be, folks will remember Jim and I had a great time with Eric Williams. Fantastic guest, great interview. I actually cut it out, so it's just a 1 hour piece of a fantastic discussion with a professor, Ohio University professor Eric Williams. We talked about genre. We talked about storytelling in general. He gave us a great Peter Falk anecdote. It was just an awesome conversation.
Yes.
And I'll pin that link down there as well. All right, Jim, I think we're winding up.
Wow.
But first of all, quickly, I'm going to make this okay, maybe not 2 hours, but maybe 2 hours and 5 minutes. First of all, director pass or fail?
Well, I got 5 minutes of thinking to do on this. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'll give her. Now for my rant. Yes, pass. Pass. We haven't even said her name. I don't believe.
Oh, yes, I did not. My bad. Kate Shortland. Yes, it's directed by Kate Shortland, written by Eric Pearson, of course, starring Scarlett Johansson, Rachel Weisz, Florence Pugh, David Harbour, O.T. Fagbenley. He was the kind
Mason.
of the Q / gopher / Mason, thank you. And, of course, Ray Winstone in what may not be his best performance, but perfectly passable. For myself, I agree with you. Definite pass. A effort. Did a fine job. Not perfect. They never are, but did a fine job. All right, Jim. Final thoughts.
Quick one. Apparently, Eric Pearson's the one that wrote Thor Ragnarok. I was reading earlier.
Oh, today. Really?
Yeah. So that's kind of interesting. No, good watch. Good summer movie. Very an interesting addition. We didn't go on much about the post credit scene about the content of it, but it's leading to other stuff, interesting stuff, which may play out in the future. So,
you're absolutely right, and my bad, but we only have so much time, and it's a school night.
Yes.
Richard L is saying, he did him and Katie Fowler watched Bahubali a few weeks ago. Fantastic. They're studying ahead.
Wow.
All right. So going back quickly before I give you my final thoughts, I wanted to note this one for you, Jim. How about Bucky and Ulysses Clow in a movie together as a true two-hander? Oh, so bad.
Zing.
Okay. For myself, yeah, Jim, the one thing I did not talk about as much as I would have liked to is the final scene, not the final scene that you're referring to, like the end credit scene, but the final scene with her in the blonde hair because they're setting up continuity.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And the vest, which I thought was kind of a fun gag. And look at all the pockets. You knew it was cool, and which I liked. The poignancy of it. They're having a moment. And as she goes to again, jet planes for everybody, hover jet planes.
Yeah.
Wonder where she's gassing that. Can't believe you haven't asked about the gas for that one, Jim.
It was there. I'm trying to keep it to a tight 120.
Anyway, I'm kind of surprised how much I enjoyed this film. It's gonna be in right now top 10 of the year.
Oh yeah,
right now top 10 of 2021 so far, and I'm really happy that I can say that about a big movie.
Yeah.
And now I'm kind of bummed that you and I could not see it in the theater. That's just shit, man. So with that done, we did manage to, maybe not perfectly 2 hours. Maybe not perfectly 2 hours.
The Russian 2 hours.
But we've done all right. I think we did a pretty good job. DMG, where were Jerry and George at the end? Added the thumping bass line in the theater himself. Good one. Referring to the post-credit scene, everyone, where there might have been a Julie Louis-Dreyfus in performing. All right. Yes, everyone. First of all, thank you all so very much for coming. Let's rattle off once again. We had such an awesome chat. Again, there is a reason you are the best chat on the internet. Curtis Judd has the second best chat. Great people, wonderful time. You always have a good time over there, but you folks are the best. And let us start with Walt. Walt, thanks for popping by. Look forward to collaborating with you soon, hopefully. Who else do we got here? DMG. Thanks again, man, for not only appearing on our show, but pre-recording an interview that never got seen, and then hanging out in the chat, adding that value and those zingers. Thanks, man. And who else do we got here? Of course,
Sean.
Katie Fowler.
Oh, yep.
Good to see you here. Always a pleasure. And thanks for bringing up those points you did. It's I love that. It gets your head going. And I will remember to dig up that video I'm referring to and pin it and send it. You had mentioned Sean. Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson, from Lost in the Reel. Sean is, I can say this now, I said it before, I'll say it now, and I'm sure this will continue in the future. He is the hardest working man on the YouTube film and television beat.
Yeah.
So thanks, given how much work he puts in, thanks for popping by. Who else do we got here? Who am I missing?
Curtis.
Curtis, Mr. Judd. Again, thank you very much, not just for your attendance, but also for, signing this wonderful commemorative edition TechZone Audio Products Stellar X2 microphone that I believe has worked out all right. I think I only heard myself, and weirdly enough, I think it's not really a function of the clip, but I have not clipped. I just babbled there. Never mind. It'll all make sense later. Trust me. Richard L. Thank you. very much. Thanks for popping in. Really appreciate that, man. Who are you going to say there, Jim?
Ono Coffee. Ono Coffee.
Ono Coffee. Yes. John from Ono Coffee. Thank you for popping by. And check out his channel. She's hanging out with this guy right now. It's a whole series called Coffee Wonderland. That is a deep dive with somebody who has got a long history, especially in espresso machines and home barista stuff. Anyway, check it out, I think it's Skaith. Skaith. He actually invented the Gizmo. I know it's got nothing to do with movies, but I just wanted to note that.
Wow.
And I think I've got everyone, Jim?
I think so, yeah.
All right. Well, listen, folks, again, I am going to thank you one more time. Jim and I really appreciate you popping in, and really look forward to seeing you again next week. And that'll be for Bahubali. It'll be Sunday morning. Thursday evening, Rob's Hot Mic, 8 p.m. Central Daylight Time. We'll have a lot of fun with the Emmy nominations, maybe a couple other treats. Again, a panel, a veritable who's who of YouTube, film, and television beat creatives. Will be more than Jim. Join Jim and I. Jim, of course, from the left coast. He'll be coming in remotely, which will be fun. So I think that's about it, Jim?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, I guess it's time to cue the credits.
All right.
Go England, everybody.